Welcome to Feisty Chess. We got a 10-5 game on LeeChess.org. I'm playing white against Zaki Juma. Okay, Sicilian. It's been a while since I played the Sicilian. Let's do our Smith Morra Gambit. Hope the black accepts, as always. Zaki Juma is higher rated than me by about 100 points. There's not really anything good here besides c takes d4. Okay, now c3. And here's where black can decline in many ways. d3 is one, d5 is another, knight f6 is another. I suppose even something as modest as d6. I'd say d3 and knight f6 are the most common ways to decline. g6 is also a possibility. Black can try to transpose into their favorite Sicilian. Zaki Juma, however, accepts, and we're going to go right into the accepted lines of the gambit. All right. This is the kind of chess I like to play. d6. From here, white will typically bring out both knights, bishop to c4, castle. All right, it looks like we may have an early time edge here. Wouldn't count that as too much, but against a higher rated player like this. We're at 2150. Let's see if I can get to 2200 on LeeChess. It's my goal over the next few months. Probably shouldn't be so concerned over rating, though. I've noticed that I tend to play better when I don't know my opponent's rating. I suppose that's just anecdotal. Okay, a6. So probably planning b5, but we'll play bishop c4 anyway, while we have the chance. This may transpose into the Chicago defense, where, okay, yeah, so after this and after one of these, black may bring a rook to a7, awkward as that looks. The plan is to bring the rook to d7 to break any pins that my queen e2, rook d1 plan could put on the d file. Knight c6, and from here I think just carrying on with the usual queen e2, planning rook to d1 next. Okay, here's rook to d1. Knight f6, and there's no fork tricks. All right. Queen c7. I think it's good for me just to oppose that queen with my bishop on f4. I might provoke e5 here. Okay. Black's just going to get in a hurry to castle. Is e5 good here? That's always the question the Morra player has to ask. e5 and rook c1 are my candidate moves here. You can't push d5 in response, because I take a piece, he takes a piece, I take another piece. So got to look at d takes, and then maybe knight takes. And then the queen looks pretty uncomfortable on that diagonal. Knight here is also an interesting idea. If he takes, knight takes bishop, d takes c7, knight takes here. I've gained my pawn back, but we've simplified the position a lot, and this c7 pawn is not going to last. So I don't like the looks of those lines. I'm going to just put my rook on c1. I know this is good because it gets a new piece into the game. And making black's queen uncomfortable. Not too uncomfortable, apparently. Okay. I think here the appropriate plan is just queenside expansion. How do I take advantage of this rook and that queen? I guess I'll just keep making useful moves. We still got the possibility of playing e5 now without any risk, so maybe now's the time for this. Sticking with what I know, even if it's not the best, maybe. So I'm looking at e5 and then bishop probably to e3. Well, bishop g5 is worth a look. But the usual move is bishop to e3 to guard over d4, because his bishop is likely coming to g4 to pin my knight. And then he can start thinking about sinking a knight in here. Although I do have a rook that covers that. So d4 is the main weak point for white when you play the Morra. So bishop e3 is a good idea to be able to chop off any knights that want to jump in there. But since his pawn will be on e5 in that line, bishop pinning here, then the rook can't really be responsible for d4 unless I want to sacrifice the exchange, which sometimes is possible. But the downside for black in playing e5 is that he'll weaken d5, and this d6 pawn will also become a weakness and a hindrance to his position. So this dark square bishop is looking pretty sad after e5. My plan, all else being equal, is to go with b4. And then there's some lines where if he wants to get his bishop to e6, I slide my queen over here at a key point. Okay, we're approaching halftime here. Zaki Juma is going a little down on the clock. Still got to worry about this. I mean, this is still an element in the position that you might need to take time out for. Especially if I plan to go b5, b4, b5. Okay, you know what we're doing against that, so let's do it quickly. Now it's either knight g4 or bishop g4, I'm going to guess. If knight g4, I'm jumping my knight immediately into d5. Yeah, that looks really good because then I'll have bishop. Yeah, knight g4 looks like a mistake. Knight d5. Queen needs to move, but where does it go? Bishop is coming here next. So probably it's best. Notice the queen can't go here because there's this knight fork with the rook and the queen. And she's going to get hit. She's going to get hit by a bishop if she stays on this diagonal. So probably the queen comes here, which just buries the queen side. Okay, bishop g4. I'm looking at this. What does this move threaten? I can also just continue with my plans, but let's give the bishop a tickle first. If black wants to trade the two bishops, that's fine with me. Actually, I should have considered whether I would recapture with the queen or the pawn. Queen's watching over this bishop is the main point, and I need to be careful of tactics there. So bishop takes, queen takes, knight d4, and if I take here, he just grabs my light squared bishop. Okay, I'm going to take a bold move here. We're going to play g takes. King should be plenty safe on h2, and I might be able to get a rook on the g file actually. So although that might look ugly, yeah, my king wants to come here anyway. I don't see a way for black to put any more pressure on h3. Got my two bishops. And I'm maybe looking to go f4, and then f5 even. Maybe that's not that productive. That might allow him to open his f file for his rook. Okay, let's just rule out any knight a5 and keep our plan going. We got a good time edge. We're just down a pawn. Okay, where's this bishop want to be? Do I want to save a2 for my queen? Or just leave the bishop there so it's protected and relatively out of harm's way? Can I afford this kind of sacrifice here? Probably not. He's got c6 pretty well protected. Let's put the bishop on b3. It's not that big a decision. Probably the bishop will end up on d5. If I want to go knight d5, I'll certainly take with a knight. Well, maybe. And then I'll recapture with a bishop. Then again, I might want to keep my knight here just to keep the game relatively closed up. Okay. it time to get that rook to the g file? Or maybe it's time to get our knight into d5. That looks pretty good. That has to be a good piece there. I'm threatening a fork on b6. I now kind of wish I had played my bishop jack to a2 so it's protected. So queen e6 would be met by knight b6. Queen e6 can't be that good though. If he goes knight to f4, I have my choice of which piece to take it with, and that's basically giving a pawn back. I suppose that would have given away the exchange too. Okay, I'm looking at rook takes c6. He's got to keep an eye on that bishop with his queen. Now that I've got c6 occupied, d5 occupied, rook takes c6, rook takes c6. I could double up on the c file, or I could get a rook to g1. I'm just going to make a decision, keep the time pressure on black. Okay, I was looking at bishop here, but that lets e5 or d4 go, which is not ideal here. Let's just bring our bishop back. Get that protected. Put the ball in black's court. And black is lashing out. Okay. Is he threatening to play to f4? Is that a threat I need to be concerned with? Am I okay letting a knight onto d4? That's the idea here. I got those two bishops. Maybe I just want to open this game up. How bad is it to take here? We'll see. Maybe our bishop wants to sit on e4. That looks kind of nice. Yeah. Leaving that knight hanging for just a moment. Okay, with our bishop on e4, I think we're making some good threats here. I don't know exactly what those threats are, but I'll leave that to him. I'll leave that to Zakijuma to figure out in his 30 seconds. Very unusual game for me, nursing a time advantage like this, and getting my opponent into some pretty severe time trouble. He is overprotecting e7, that bishop. Okay. Does this lose a piece? Knight takes, let's say recapture with the bishop. Rook takes here, rook takes, rook here. I suppose he can get his other rook over to defend. What else do I have? Knight takes here, and he has to take with the rook. I'm How about knight to b6? And he has to stay protecting this with rook to c7. I'm going to go for this. I'm going to get my bishop to d5. Well, actually, I don't see a need to do that. Ah, queen here looks good. Does it? Ooh, that's hard to say. Let's get the bishop to d5. Just keep the pressure up. Okay. He's got a nice defensive bishop there, doesn't he? I think if I just do this, I don't see much that black can do, because now his knight can't move and threaten my queen at the same time. Okay, he's getting out of the pin. Okay. Okay, we're in an opposite bishops kind of position here. All right, we're down to the increment. I think I've gotten him to just give back a pawn. But I think black's better here. Okay, now I'm not convinced. Just keeping mates on the table. Okay, that makes sense. I am willing to repeat in this position. Am I missing something? No. Okay. All right, we gained a few points. I know I had a win there. I must have had a win somewhere. So let's dig into the analysis. Draw's not so bad against a strong player like that, but with that kind of time advantage, a little bit of a disappointing result. Knight come out, and we've got basically the main line of the Morra, the variation of the main line with a6 being played by black. He can play without that move if he's careful. Yeah, it wants me to play e5 here. All right, this is worth knowing. If I revisit my Morra book, what about this? This is my question. E takes d6, knight takes f4, d takes c7, knight takes here. This is supposed to be better for black. Yeah, now it says it's better for black. And if this is all forcing, then where's the rub? Now it does like rook a to c1. No, it still likes e5. Computer is very confused here. What's the book say? Rook a to c1 is more commonly played, but doesn't fare much better. Black tends to win these. Now, the book doesn't look good for the Morra right here, but it should be noted, when you see this kind of thing, what's not being accounted for is the ratings of the players. And typically lower rated players are going to play this against higher opposition. Here's some games in question, right? 2483 as white against 2658. Another 100-point rating difference in black's favor. In fact, you see all four of these games that are listed. Black's rating is significantly higher. So those results are results for people at those ratings. They're not results of the Morra, objectively speaking. When you play an opening like this, that's not main line, like most elite players are playing the main line Sicilian, it doesn't necessarily mean that the Morra is not as sound. It just means that when you see those statistics, the Morra statistics are going to be biased for black because the black player is more often the higher rated player. Okay, rook a to c1, castles. Let's see, a3. I think a3 is Mark Esserman's move here. Bishop b3 is another option, just to open up this file against the queen, and we're threatening things like this. Yeah, we're threatening something like this because if he takes with the pawn, we simply recapture, and we're gaining our piece back. But we kind of opened up the center, and we're going to make this queen side a little less structurally sound, at the very least. Okay, it doesn't like e5. h3. Okay, alright, that was maybe the inaccuracy. So here's what I was worried about. What was I worried about here? There's nothing to be worried about. Queen takes f3 is perfectly fine. It actually keeps an eye on h5, so the knight doesn't jump there. And it keeps the structure together. I'd had illusions in my head that I needed to watch over d4, but the bishop does that job perfectly fine. And if he wants to jump into d4, it's just going to cost him a pawn. Although I was worried about my bishop. Right. So knight, I'd have to give up the bishop here. Now queen takes here. I guess it's met by knight d5. Oh wow, and look at this bishop hanging with check. So queen takes d5 is the best line black has. Wow, okay. That's the power of the Morra rooks. Alright, queen takes f3. Noted. I need to remember this. These Morra games are good for memorization, so knowing when you need to take with the g-pawn in this kind of scenario, and when you need to take with the queen. I thought I needed to take with the g-pawn, which isn't a terrible mistake, but I'd much rather keep my structure together and produce this kind of game. And it's sort of a trap even, because this is just a bad move for black. Bishop takes d4, and then he's got nothing better than e takes d4, and rook takes d4. Keeps everything together, and I got my pawn back. And I got a more active position. Okay. Took with the pawn. Let's king g2, king h2. f4. Yeah, I should have gone for that. Well, the computer likes that anyway. Well, doesn't like this plan so much. If this is the plan that Esserman recommends, just to keep the knight from coming here, you know, if black wants to play, black can play d5 with tempo, b5 with tempo, and after my bishop, say, slides back here or back here, knight can come here, and I don't want to have to play b3 to keep the knight out of here because it blocks my bishop. So that's why b4 is a good move to get in. Now black plays b5, and his knight is not coming to a5 and c4. Knight d5. Maybe now f4? What does it think about f4? It's not bad. Rook g1. Okay, I'm playing with the computer here. Queen d1. Why d1? Alright, this is a lazy move. I mean, I was just trying to keep pressure on black, time-wise. f4. Yeah, it does like f4 here. I mean, you got that bishop pointed over at the king side. Eesh. Rook takes c6. Now what's going on? Bishop d4. Difficult to evaluate why this is so killing. The knight is guarding. Oh, but the knight's hanging. And this doesn't work too well, huh? No bishop takes. Bishop takes f6. We're looking at mate in 4. Queen g4. Okay, his back rank is weak. Okay, some important themes to note in the Morra. When you get this knight on d5, the kind of power that has. Once I played f4, I've unleashed these kind of threats. So knight takes here is the best move, then queen g4 comes with a threat. G6 has to be played. Now we go rook takes c6 anyway. Rook takes c6. Knight takes f4. Bishop d4. Ooh. f6. Bishop d5. We're winning that exchange back, I suppose. Still just a plus half pawn advantage for white. Queen to c8. Let him keep the exchange. As long as the queens stay on the board. Interesting. I'd be tempted just to take the exchange here. And the queens still need to stay on the board. But that likes black. Taking the pawn and giving back the exchange. Rook c3. Black doesn't want the exchange, apparently. What about just this? Rook takes g6. We've got a mate, I see. Okay, a little too much going on there for a 10-5 game to really flesh out. Lots of sacrificial ideas, lots of mating threats. I played a sensible move. Maybe the bishop should have gone to a2 to begin with if I was worried about that. E takes f5 is the right play here. Bishop b1. I got a big advantage. f7. f4. Huh. Just crack open that center. Apparently my king is safe enough. f4, what's the idea? What about just knight takes? Bishop takes. Pawn takes, what's wrong with that? Oh. Queen h5, hitting that rook, and threatening mate. g6. Rook g6, oh, bishop g6, even better. Rook g7. Just push it back to f5. Bishop h4. Now this seems to make sense. Bishop takes h7. Rook takes, why not? Rook takes g8. And we're getting in here. Beautiful. So many mates. So many mates when you play the Morra. I gotta work on my chops. I gotta play feistier so I can get this stuff back into my bloodstream. Okay, so f4. f4 being the main aggressive idea because it's a forcing move. Right? It looks like it just gives up a pawn, but it's a forcing move because it makes black deal with that. And that knight on d5, and he's doing enough threatening on these squares here, but on f4 is key. This is still good. What I chose is good. Knight takes f6. I think my problem is I'm always looking for ways to win that exchange or that piece. And the more airy goals of how do I just win active position or some awesome attack. Like I often look for that attack, and then try to cash in with some material, and then grind out the material. That's a very common pattern in my games. But keeping that initiative going and keeping the attack going, even at the expense of more material, is often tough. Okay, I threw it away with another calm bishop move. Queen a2. Hey, I mentioned that idea earlier. That hits the rook, which is protected, but you notice this does make a threat because The queen can't watch both of those spots at once. Rook back to f8. And then the queen comes to d5. Oh, and that's a pin as well. That's the quickest way to act on the pin. So why not rook here to back this up? Queen e6. It's unclear where this 5-point advantage comes from. Are we just planning on doing this? Threatening rook f5. So threatening queen f5 and then that. We're also threatening d6. So yeah. Looks pretty bad for black, but it's hard to believe it's -5, -6. Okay, queen a2 was one I missed. Thought I needed to hit that rook with a bishop. But sometimes the subtle threats are the better ones. Because my queen is not doing much on e2. So getting that involved in playing this threat game, I didn't realize that this, I mean, there's two things. I don't really consider the move, although I had seen it earlier. And the other thing is I didn't see that this was still a threat, because this is a complex threat. It's easier to notice simple threats, like bishop d5. Okay. Queen d2. Now it likes black. Kudos to black for seeing his way through this. I don't think I missed anything advantageous to me here. I want to see if this, going into the bishop ending, this is probably losing, actually. Queen takes, bishop takes, and then what if he just runs this pawn? My king can't get in the square. And even if it could, this would put an end. Well, no it wouldn't. He's got ideas like this. How do I deal with this? Bishop f5? Yeah, there's only one route. And now bishop b2. a4. He takes a4. He's going to have two passers over here. I mean, I'd hate to have to defend this anyway. So not too disappointed with the result of a draw, and that I held things together at least. We're both, I think, relieved to find a repetition here under that kind of high intensity time pressure. So, okay. Good game to analyze. Thank you very much, Zakijuma, and thanks to you for watching. I will see you next time, and stay feisty.